Hello, welcome back to another fabulous channel. I'm Jay from Jay Books Corner, and today we're doing a 40-hour readathon where over the next 48 hours I'm going to be reading 7 books with you, and yeah, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. I hope you guys enjoy. Oh, also, there are chapter times linked down below throughout the vlog. I don't do it for every book, but for instance, one of the books, Inheritance by Elizabeth Sabo, which is a poem novel, we read together in its entirety, so if you want to skip that, it is in chapter times in case you have no desire. So, alright, let's jump into the vlog. We are officially an hour, I want to say, into this challenge. I read The Rest of Fallen, so this ended up being like a 3.25. Once again, I still found it to be very enjoyable, one of the more enjoyable ones. I think it's probably because it's just the most open about what the actual messages and things are, at least in book 1, I should say. Book 2 onward gets a little more shaky on where Lauren Kate really stands with the whole religious angle of this book series, but at least the first one, we're on pretty good terms. By the way, I finished this one, so we'll count it. It was like 130 pages. We'll put it on the counter. Then I got the audiobook for Don't Cry, and I don't actually know like how far it took me into what I read. So it's looking like the first like 30 or so pages. Not a lot, but still very early on in our reading challenge. Don't Cry for me is exactly what I thought it was. The author's note is from Daniel Black. Daniel Black is the one who narrates it as well, the whole entire thing. And he talks about how his dad had passed away, or has not passed away, but he is dealing with Alzheimer's, which means that he is getting to meet a brand new father he never met when he was younger. And so he's going through a visceral, raw experience, and we're kind of going through that visceral, raw experience with him. But he decided to write a book in letters from a dad to a gay son, because that's obviously the dynamic that he knows. He decided to write it in the same time period and everything that it would be written in, and so we're dealing with a very similar father figure that he would have been dealing with his entire life. So almost like a reverse memoir in a way, because his dad obviously has Alzheimer's. He's learning a lot more about his dad then, because they reconnected. His dad was very not kind. He also didn't agree with his questionings of sexualities and stuff, and I know it's gonna be like a big part of this as well. We're backwards in time right now. We're in like the 1800s, but because it's like letters from a certain date to this man's son, and he said in it that like, we can't talk about you yet, we talk about before me, before grandpa, before, you know, or actually we talk about grandpa first, and we can talk about me, and then we can talk about you. It's essentially like what the order seems like, and it's very powerful so far. I think the words are extremely moving, and the first 30 pages, it's blowing me out of the water. Like, has potential for favorite book of the year or top 10. That's how crazy this experience is. So I figured we could go ahead and pull out the 2 that I wanted to read with you guys right away to kind of get those ones out of the way. So the first one being Inheritance, a visual poem by Elizabeth Sabo. I wanted to read this one with you because we could read it technically together. Actually, I have no idea how long this is, so hopefully this isn't going to be like extremely long reading time. Just in case you do want to skip over reading time with Jacob. Hi, I'm your teacher. Please sit down, grab a nice drink. We're going to be reading books today. It's a spoken word poem about beauty. If you guys want to experience this with me, please do carry along. If you guys do not want to read with me, I'll show you the whole book, whole 9 yards. Perfectly fine. I understand. Skip to this timestamp. I'll also put it as a chapter time down below, so if you just want to go down in the cards and just click on it, you can. Some people tell me to fix my hair, and by fix, they mean straighten, they mean whiten. But how do you fix this shipwrecked history of hair? The true meaning of stranded, when trees hug tight like African cousins in ship bellies. Did our ancestors imagine their great-grandchildren would look like us, and would they try to escape them how we do? Ooh! Oh. Finding ways to erase them out from our skin, to iron them out of our hair. This wild tangle of hair that strangles air. Some call them mild curls, but I call them breathing. Ancestors spiraling. Can you see them in the wet hair that leaves like hello? We're told Dominiques do the best hair. We can wash, set, flatten, spring, any luck. What they mean is, we are the best at swallowing amnesia in a cup of Moira Sonata, die dreaming, because it seems easier to do that than live in this reality. Caught between orange juice and milk, between reflections of the sun and whiteness. What they mean is, why would you date a black man? What they mean, on Burrito, Coco Lo. What they mean is, why would 2 oppressed people come together? It's 2 times the trouble. What they really mean is, have you thought of your daughter's hair? And I don't tell them that my love and I are sugarcane. Dark skin, pale flesh, meshed in pure sweetness, the children of children's fields. Our bodies curve into each other like an echo, and I let my curtain curls blanket us from the world. Our children will be beautiful, of dust skin and brilliant eyes. Hair reclamation. Oh, how I will braid pride down their backs, and from the moment they leave the loom, they will be born in love with themselves. Some people tell me to fix my hair. So many words remain unspoken because all I can reply is, you can't fix what was never broken. Alright, that's the first one. I'm coming in here, I just did a sappy update, and I'm in my feels, I'm in my brain. It's about 3:30 in the morning, and I just got done reading Light Filters In by Carol Kaufman. What a beautiful poetry collection. I love Caroline Kaufman's writing so much. This was a 5. Definitely worth the read, and if you like poetry, I would say if my brain up real bad. I've been in my feels, I've been texting a bunch of people tonight. It's not been great. Ultimately, that's okay. Also kind of inspired me to get back into poetry, which was unexpected, because I only really write poetry when I'm sad. I write down all my poetry feelings when I'm sad, and then, which in retrospect, that's a good thing, because that means I haven't been super sad enough to write poetry. I'm about halfway through Don't Cry For Me as well by Daniel Black. I've listened to quite a bit of it while doing other chores and stuff today, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. The stories are particularly sad. This man is going through a real hardship, and then hearing him talk about his son and things and different things and the experiences and stuff. It's been hard. There's 2 or 3 moments in here that are truly just upsetting to read, but that's fine. And then I'm 5% into Alone, which it starts out with our main character being alone, and then we go backwards in time. She's been alone for at least, I think it's 3 years when the book actually began. Yep, for over 3 years, which I thought was really interesting. I really like the quotes from the island of blue dolphins, the sound of a human voice. There is no sound like it in all the world, which I don't think that's something that I think us as a society takes truly enough for granted, is the sound of other people's voices, just for the simple fact that you could end up in a situation like this, or The Quiet Place, where you can't talk and you can't enjoy those voices. We are here 15 pages in. My big takeaway: main character is extremely unlikable, and I'm curious to see where that growth is going to come from. I think it's pretty straightforward. I think it makes a lot of sense the reason why she's unlikable, and she even talks about how, even though she's unlikable in the beginning of this, when she's 13, she's also a 13-year-old. So something to keep in mind. I don't know if I'm going to pick that up next. Update you guys when I read more. The next one I finished was The Life of a Mongol Mental Disarray by Bella Thorne. I'm not rating it because I'm going to count this as a memoir, and because I didn't think it was a out of the park 5-star, they don't get rating. That's just what happens when doing stuff like this. But that being said, I still very much thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I would recommend it to the people who would think they would enjoy it, or if you want more insight onto Bella Thorne in general. I would say there's quite a few different sections that are like this that are very hard to read, and the parts that you can pick out are quite touching and powerful, and so I just wish it was a little more easier to read. But it's extremely vulnerable and extremely, I'm sure, hard for her to re-experience, but also go through again. And we go through several different relationships that she had when she was writing this book as well. And each one is very different and very interesting. And her relationship towards her parents, and how much she loves her sister. I don't know, I really liked it. Very much enjoyed it, but I'm not rating it because I didn't give it a 5, and I do count it as a memoir, and my stance on memoirs, because it is so personal to that person, the original person, or whatever you might want to say. If it's not a perfect 5, you don't get rated. Doesn't mean I didn't like you, it just means I don't want to rate your life a 4, because that doesn't seem fair to me. I wouldn't want someone rating my life a 4, and that's just my opinion. See you soon. Hi, welcome back. Update on the reading. I finished 2 more books. I finished 2 more books since the last time I talked to you. I finished these a little bit after the time limit. By the way, it's 2 days later. I'm doing this wrap up. So the first one would be Alone by Megan E. Freeman. This one follows a girl, like I had mentioned earlier, as she ends up being trapped out in the wilderness. Not the wilderness, the whole population kind of disappears, and she ends up being trapped alone in this world with just a dog on survival. And I felt like the main character of Maddie was particularly unlikable in the beginning, but I felt like her evolution as a protagonist really started to form and become its own unique thing that I really, really liked and thoroughly enjoyed by the end of the book. I think if you're interested in survival tales and you're curious of what a Y teen or upper middle grade would be interested in that before YA, I think it's a good place to start. I think it's nice. I think the poetry is written moderately okay. I felt like it was an okay story in verse. I don't think it would have popped as well if it wasn't in verse. But also I felt like not everything, like the author almost used it as like a cheating way to get around some descriptions and stuff. I did that too when I wrote my story in verse. So no hate, just pointing it out. I think we're landing on like a 3.75. It was just a good, average, fun book. Then I read a book that truly was, it was just so heartbreaking, and I'm happy that I have like some type of documentation in the year that I read it, because I want to make sure that I remember it, and I will have to say that it will probably pop up in my top 23 books of the year. I don't know exactly where it lands, just because I don't think the whole thing was out of the park amazing like the beginning part was. I felt like the middle, we're talking about Don't Cry For Me, by the way, I felt like the middle was a little too, wasn't as precise as I was hoping for it being such a short book, and I felt like the ending came around with a very clear, like there was a very clear intention. I think it was beautifully portrayed and beautifully done, and I felt like as unlikable, or as however you want to say the protagonists are, so like as likable, and how, I guess unlikable, but how the character turns out to be likable. I just think the message was really well received here and really well done. So it was a 5-star. It was probably my favorite read of it. With that being said, go ahead and talk about all the books I read in this video. So I started off with Inheritance by Liv Sato. This was a 5. I think I did rate it a 5. I thought it was really well done. I personally didn't like my reading of it, but overall would recommend. And happy we had story time. And then we read my least favorite one, which was Stephen King's The Dark Man. It just rubbed me the wrong way, and it really did feel like it was time of it. Like it was a part of the time that it came out, and I gave it a 2.5. Really did not sit with me well. A lot of people liked it though. We like light filters and poems. It sent me on a mental disarray yesterday, or when I read it, maybe 2 days ago. No, it was yesterday. But I did end up giving it a 5 and highly would recommend, even if it fucked with my head. Then I read The Life of a Wannabe Mongol Mental Disarray by Bella Thorne. I did end up rating this. It is a memoir, so I don't tend to rate those if they're not perfect, but would recommend it if you're interested in either Bella Thorne or just the material and how it's written and things. And I think there's some really potent stuff to say there. And of course, talked about Ride Alone by Megan E. Freeman and Don't Cry For Me by Danielle. And then we also read Fallen by Lauren Kate. And those are the 7 books that I read in this entire video. This is the amount of pages that I read in this video, and I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.